seconds.
Okay.
So let me go back to there. Oops. There we go.
Oh, you wanted you wanted my sword, right?
Yeah.
I can just fetch it. Ugh.
Hi everyone, it's Sir Rithkin, and I'm here with Sir Bren, and we're going to be interviewing His Grace Vitus Polonius. I hope I pronounced that right, but he just went to go get his sword. So Bren and I are going to hang out a little bit longer together. Wait for him to come back. We apologize for the delay. His Grace had a computer problem, and that he had to deal with. And he's back.
Terribly sorry.
Great. So usually we start these with your origin story, like how you found the SCA and where and when and all of that. So if you wanted to start there, that would be great.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think I was very, very lucky. Not only that I found the SCA, but also the way I did. It was, I think, 99 or so. And I was, well, I had a company with some other guy, and it all wasn't going that swimmingly between the two of us at that time. And so a friend of mine and colleague, we worked together in that company, and he said, "Man, you look like shit. You look like you could use some relaxation." Say, yeah, what you got in mind? And he said, I'm doing this medieval reenactment thing, and you are interested in history, and so thought maybe you come along, right? So, and I said, yeah, sure, why not? And I didn't have anything, and he said, no worries, we have a gold key, never mind what it is, we'll find something for you. And so we left Friday, it was May or so, late May. So we left Friday after work, drove 2-3 hours, and we arrived at the site just when it started to getting dark. And the site was actually, it was an archery event, baronial hunt in Drachenwald. And the site was on top of a hill, and it was basically they had chopped off the top of the hill and had flattened it out, so it was a 100-meter archery range, and so left and right halfway down the it was a small local event, halfway down the range there were tents, and there were no artificial light or fires and candles and torches, and everybody was running around in medieval clothes, except for me, of course. All that was remedied. I don't really want to know or remember what I was wearing there. But the funny thing was that everybody treated me like I had been a long lost friend, and I was included, and I was shown how archery goes, and there was somebody there. There's always one who is like, "What? There's no fighting," but who, of course, wanted to demonstrate to the newbie how that rattan stuff works, and I was immediately taken by it, especially since I was interested in reenactment, but all the other reenactment groups I had looked at were very, very hierarchical, and you basically had to slave your way up, and you had to have exactly the right kit, and what is exactly right was decided by the big man or the big woman, as it may be. So, which is really not my way, but the approach of, yeah, we make it up as we go along, I really liked. So, and I chided Arbert later that he should have taken me a couple years earlier there, So yeah, that's how I came to it, and I mean, it's still one of those things I love to do. So, and I mean, it's basically my hobbies has hobbies, right? So,
So when did you first get in armor?
mm, so I got first into armor sometime. No, actually, my first event must have been '98 because I got into armor. So I started putting up armor together in the summer '99, um, and somebody helped me actually making a helmet and elbows, and I bought legs and all that. And the first time I was really in armor was in October '99. And I got my authorization in January 2000.
Were you in London at this point, or were you somewhere else?
No. I'm German, so I while I have been working in London before, and we are living here now since 2007. I was still living in Germany, and yeah, I mean, when I started, the closest fight practice was like 440 kilometers away. Yeah. But the nature of my job allowed me to work wherever a good fighter practice. Whenever somebody offers me a job, I was first thing I looked up: do they have nights? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've been working and living all over the place, which helped me a lot, because Drachenwald, few nights and far between. And especially since the American forces, well, pretty much left mostly, and have just very few people there. There is not many American knights, and Germany still has, I think, a couple of active knights, kind of ish.
Right.
So, yeah.
So
go ahead.
Okay. So you started in late 99, and
Mhm.
what kind of experience was that like for you? Like, were you once you got an armor, was it just like, oh my god, this is amazing, and you were hooked and found somebody to teach you? Like, what was that path like?
So I was like, so the first event where I saw people actually fighting was at baronial investiture in Drachenwald again, and that was a really fun event. It was held in a winery, in an old winery, and I think the price tag was pretty steep, like 25 Deutschmark or something, but it included as much as you can drink of the house wine, red or white, right? I'm not quite sure whether they made any profit on it. And and we slept pretty much wherever there was space. I slept somewhere in a hay loft, and I was drinking with these guys. What I found later out was Duke Drachenwald and His Majesty. So and I was drinking with these guys until like 4 or 5 in the morning, right? And I woke up from some sound like somebody is throwing washing machines out of the window, right? And I hadn't seen really heavy fighting before that, and so I saw that. So I got out there and I saw this guy I had been drinking with, His Majesty, Matthew. And I saw him there kicking ass left and right, you know, and that friendly, jovial men become a menace on the field there. And they had this, I mean, this is, no, that was actually Knight's Crossing, not Drachenwald. And this is Knight's Crossing, so they have all these weird things, like having the Wheel of Fortune tournament, and that was one of those, right? So, and seeing how somebody with a couple of daggers mows down people with sword and shield and whatnot, and I was like, that was a moment where I thought, yeah, I want to be like that when I grow up, right? Well, as it happened, Matthew became later my knight, but quite a bit later. So no, I just said I need to do this, and that's when I started putting armor together in earnest and all that, and was seeking out as much as possible, reading Bellatrix's stuff, and I mean, internet was still relatively early days, so whatever I could get hold of, and whenever I could go somewhere and get some, I was taking my armor everywhere.
So it sounds to me like you found this thing, you saw it, you got, oh my god, this is amazing, and then now it's like, okay, now what? So you looked a little bit online, and then you actually had to start traveling outside of your local area. So there wasn't a lot of fighting, other than, like you were saying, like 40 kilometers away. Like, how big was that practice? Was that something? Like, was that a practice where you could go and learn how to throw the snap and all that sort of stuff, or?
It was maybe 5-6 people, if there were many. So no, what I basically did is I found the remnants of the Shire that I lived in Berlin back then, and I found the remnants of the Shire in West Berlin. Perilous Journey, it was called, and hooked up with those guys. Unfortunately, there were not really many Germans in that group, and the Americans had all left. There were a little bit, I mean, West Berlin was a crazy place, right? So the American military was very, very insular. So, well, and then I recruited people, and then we started making armor and stuff, and then we had a local fighter practice a while later too. So, and then I was traveling. So I was working in Frankfurt, which had actually 2 fighter practices, one in Wiesbaden and one in Heidelberg. It's, I mean, 150 kilometer round trip to fighter practice is nothing, right? That's just even here in London, if the fighter practice we used to have was in North London, and that's basically a 2.5-3 hour round trip, right? So that's just what it is, you know. And sometimes I go to Cambridge fighter practice. It's pretty much the same. It's 2.5-3 hours round trip. So it is what it is. I just practice, and I mean I built my Pell, and I did Pell work 5 times a day, 5 times a week, 15 minutes at least.
5 times a day, wow.
No, at least 15 minutes, and 5 times a week, sometimes more often. And although I was not a very good listener, I have to say that. Yeah, the fighter practice in Western Germany I attended, they were actually pretty good. So were quite a few, very few knights, but quite a few top level fighters that would be knighted over the next few years. So.
Did you start out sword and shield?
Yeah, I started out sword and shield. First, I had a pretty large heater, but I changed relatively soon to a flat top kite, a relatively tall one. And I took the dimensions in relation to my body from a mid 13th century 1244, 1248, something statue in Naumburg. Yeah, that was my trademark for very many years, that tall flat top kite shield. And of course, everybody said, "Well, what nonsense is this? This won't work," which was exactly the wrong thing to say. So I had to make it work, right? So.
Was that the shield you fought His Grace Alfin in the finals in 2010? Was that the shield you were using?
Yeah.
I just watched that video. It's a very, that's a very cool shield.
Yeah. I mean, I've at some point it was like, oh man, this is boring, and it's really difficult to lug around. Maybe I try a smaller heater shield. So I've been using a heater shield for couple years or so. And lately I have been fighting quite a bit with center grab shields. So, which is a lot of fun too. So I mean, at this point, I just pick up whatever is around, right? I'm not picky.
So,
okay. Sorry. No, you go ahead. You go ahead.
You really go.
So the first little bit of your career, you started, you're in Germany doing a lot of Hamburg and traveling a lot. How long before you found a knight to squire under? Like you were saying, the king took a while to become a squire. So what was that process like for you, like those first few years of figuring this all out?
Yeah, so I mean, as I said, I went to fighter practice wherever I could. I traveled a lot to events too, and I met through. I was Dina of the West. She's a Countess Dina. She lived in Berlin for a couple of years, and I was by and large very lucky with the circumstances. So without Dina, I wouldn't have met half of the people in the. So listening to her about the SCA in the Western United States gave quite some perspective and all that. And I met lots of people also in Drachenwald I probably wouldn't have met at that point or would not have been to introduce. And I met George, my later married squire brother, of one of the trips. She basically said, let's go there. Let's jump in a car and let's go there. There's an event in Sweden. It's if we leave now, we're there tomorrow morning, right? And also Aston of Wortham. He was when he still is a very impressive guy, and so both of them were squires to Matthew. And since I like both these guys, and I was pretty impressed by Matthews, I said like, yeah, Matthew, I think I would like to be your squire. More or less, not in much in many more words. And he was like, yeah, okay, yeah, we can talk about it. I mean, I need to talk with the guys, but they seem to like you and all that. And then at some event, he said, "You ready?" And took me to the king's table at feast and asked whether he could have some of the king's tonight. And boom, I was a squire. I think that must have been 2003 or so.
Yeah.
And how did you guys train together at that time?
Oh, we didn't,
Okay.
because Matthew lived in Sweden. Uh, should have taken my allergy pill. So Matthew lived in Sweden, and I lived in Germany. But I try to go to Sweden as much as possible, and I mostly trained with the other squires. So it was a hand-me-down knowledge, um, and the uh, there were two things to being Matthew's squire. One was that um, I had much more insight into how the SEA works on the higher levels. When you're not just doing your stuff and go to events, but when when uh, uh, when you're organize things, when you run things, and all that. And I started pretty soon running events too, and all that. So and that really helped me to understand the SCA and how it works, and all that much better, and become, so to say, a valuable member of the society. And the other thing was having somebody telling me, by giving me a red belt, that they trust me and believe in me, right? And one of the things Matthew always said is that if you want to be a squire with him, you need to have the desire to become a knight one day, right? And so he believed me that I wanted to be a knight, right? So and that was, and of course we fought as much as we could at events and whatnot, and so George lived closer to me in the south of Sweden, and funnily enough, I moved later to Stockholm to be closer to Matthew, and then he moved to the south of Sweden for work. So it was all pretty weird.
So, when did you decide that you wanted to be a knight, and what was the motivation?
Basically, as what I told you, the event where I saw people fighting first, right? And I didn't know that Matthew was a knight or whatever, but that was, yeah, I want to be like this guy, right? This is what I want to be. And then I found out, well, this is how you be. This is how knights are, right, on the field, and hopefully off the field too. So, and that was pretty much from the beginning. I wanted to be a knight, and I told Matthew I want to be a knight, right? And I still think there's lots of people that think like, oh, I shouldn't want to be a peer or something. Of course, you should want to be a peer, right? But the motivation is, of course, the thing. Do you want to peer because of the trappings, because of the respect, or do you want to be a peer because you want to be like those guys, right? You want to be inspirational and well, exceptional at your chosen field and all that. And what helped me too in understanding what knight is was Sir Wiglaf. He's original from the West too, but has been living and still lives in Drachenwald since forever. And he used to hold at some events a class about chivalry and peerage, and he said, yeah, there's nothing wrong with wanting to be. One thing you need to remember is the only thing you can do is put in the work, and then people may recognize you. Yeah? You cannot make yourself a laurel, pelican, or a knight. You can only put in the work. There is no checklist, right? You need to, and that's also an important thing. I think at the end of the day, you need to become your own knight, right? You need to find out what is important for you. And I mean, I have had many inspirations beside of my knight. Duke Matthias is one of the great inspirations. Or Duke Jonathan from Drachenwald. So, but understanding what this journey encompasses relatively early really helped me, and that was where my knight really helped me on my path, right? Not so much with but I mean, I'm not a good listener. I said that before. So training me must have been sometimes hard.
So you're known for having a super period kit. Is that something that you were interested in pursuing right away, or did you come to pursue that later?
Very much so. I mean, I didn't know much about armor when I started, obviously, but I started putting together this early period kit about 3 years in, and it was something I really wanted to. And it is because, I mean, knight in shining armor and all that, to me, a knight was always male Kappa P with a big bucket helmet, and not so shiny. And the funny thing is, it comes actually from a comic. So the first impression of knights I got from cartoons, and there was this knight of the turnip, and he had his 3 squires, right? And he was in mail and all that, and so he was screwing up everything, and his squires always had to save his bacon. But that was, for me, that was a knight, right? And so that's how I wanted to look. And people were like, "Oh, Vitus, it's not gonna work. It's too heavy. It's too whatever. You can't see enough. You can't breathe." And like, but there were people that actually did it, right? So it must be possible, right? I mean, somehow people walked in mail from basically from somewhere here to Jerusalem, right? So it's got to be possible somehow. So, and that was and the thing with heavy fighting is that while it is certainly a sport, and it requires training and discipline and study and all that, but it is more than that, to me at least. I mean, if you want to wear your light armor and all that, that's fine. And you don't need to tell me why, and it's not where I'm from or whatever. That's okay. That's your choice. I want to understand what it is to be an armed knight in the Middle Ages as much as I can. And part of that is that I wear 75 pounds of kit, right? So, and yeah, and I mean, it's just if I haven't been in armor for a while, getting into that shirt is like, it's and it has a lot to do with what I think I want to get out of it. So I mean, it's not that I don't mind losing. I actually hate losing, but I'm not competitive as such, right? I don't have to be the best knight, and I have to be able to beat everybody. Because for me, it is more about the experience. Winning is a bonus, yeah, and of course, I can say that now, but it is really, and I take some pride out of it too. That I mean, I'm quite frequently almost twice as old than the average, and still can go there with heavier armor and no, not today, it's my day, go home. It is fun too, but yeah.
So wearing that heavy of a kit, how often are you training outside of armor? Like, were you going to the gym? Do you go to the gym? Do you think that, or is it just
yeah. So at the moment I'm totally out of shape. No fighter practice, and I'm actually taking pretty much a little break from everything, and coping with depression and all makes exercising not easy, and not exercising makes life not easy too, you know. But when I actually train, I go running 3 to 4 times a week. So I try to do somewhere between 35 and 45 kilometers a week, 3 times the gym, and probably some, well, let's call it tell work, but it's more technical studies when I work on things and when I try to understand things, how all people do it. And I still do my footwork drills, and yeah, it's I train a lot if I train. To win a crown, I have to be in top shape. Yeah. And I mean, I'm 57, right?
Right. So at what point? So when did you start fighting in crowns? Because crowns there run a lot differently than they run here. And that we have hundreds of people, like 100 people in our crowns sometimes. Mm-hmm. So like anybody enters it, but your rules do seem to be a bit different in what their expectations are of you to even enter.
Yeah. So I mean, I know lots of people, or not lots, but quite a few people that only would enter a crown tournament when they think they can make it at least to the top 4 or so, or have a chance at winning if things go their way. I started fighting crown. My first crown I fought less than 3 months after I authorized. And then I fought the next 21 crowns. I only missed 1. And that was because I was working in Brazil at that time, and flying back for a weekend was just not an option. And I won actually the 20th crown I fought in. So, yeah.
Wow. And how often do you guys have them there? Twice a year?
Twice a year, every 6 months, yeah. Cool. 10 years.
Wow. 10 years. So 10 years from when you started. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you got knighted before you won crown, though, right?
Yeah, I got knighted almost to the date 9 years after I authorized. Winter coronation, 12th night coronation in 2009, and I won crown in 2000. Did I win the spring, or I don't know? I think it was 2010 spring crown. Yeah.
Was your knighting a surprise, or?
Yeah, very much so. that was actually quite funny, in a number of ways. And the first thing was that my consort, I had been fighting with all these 20 crowns, or at that point 18 or so. A dear friend of mine, and she asked me, Vitus, I'm going to make this new kit for my men and for coronation, but I don't think I can make it. Will be able to finish it completely. But maybe if you help me and do make the under tunic. I have the rest. I say, yeah, sure. Do you have measurements? And he's the same size as you. Just make it so it fits for you. And I say, well, so what you want? Yeah, just the ankle length white under tunic, right? Yeah, you see where that's going, right? Yeah. So she basically tricked me into making my own vigil tunic. Winter coronation, and the other thing I like to think back on is I mentioned Sir Wiglaf before, and he told the story of how he became a knight. So he basically said, he wanted to be one of the cool guys, right? Wanted to play with the big boys, and And when he actually got knighted, he found himself standing in the back of the court, chatting with the knights, as knights do, right? I don't know why we do that, but and then he was called forward, right? And then thinking back on it for a while, he actually had been hanging out with these guys, and they had accepted him already into their circle before he was formally organized. So fast forward like 9 years or so, and I'm standing. It's coronation. I'm standing in the back of the court with some of the knights, and we were actually trying on coronets for sight. So I had my baronial, and they had their vice regal coronets and all that, and we were just swapping them around. And I was called forward, right? And was sent to vigil, and that was like, yeah, right. That's how it happened. Exactly how it happened, right? And I think that is a good way. Yeah.
Yeah. My sister sort of tells a similar story about laurels. Like you're getting close to be recognized as a laurel when you're hanging out with all the laurels, and they're already your peers. And I think that is very true with knighthood as well. You're already there. Yeah. So you
Honestly, I didn't think I was ready, but
so you got to have a vigil then. So were you put on a vigil like on a Saturday and then elevated on a Sunday?
Friday night. Yeah, we since we usually do vigils on Friday night and elevate on Saturday, because Sunday most people have to pack up and leave. Because if you go to an event in Germany, I mean, it's 10, 12 hours or so, right?
Right.
Even if you fly, it's like at least 6, 7 hours with all the hassle, right? So yeah, no, I got and I actually had my kids with me, so I actually needed somebody to find somebody in a hurry to bring them to bed. And yeah, I had it was freezing outside, and vigil was in a tent. Man, that was cold. But yeah.
So was your vigil based on period texts or anything like that?
The vigils, I mean, we use the standard invocation, usually, but the ceremony we do in Drachenwald, and how it has been done forever in Drachenwald, really, is that we are doing the ceremonial washing, and everybody says a few words, and we try to do it wherever possible, in a natural water, at a natural water source. So, well, there was one. It was a lake, and it was like minus, I don't know, right? -6, -7 Celsius. So, and so way below freezing. So that was quite interesting. However, it is tradition that the knight stands in the water with the vigilant, yeah, so I don't remember all the details, but it was pretty magic. Out in the dark, like just torches.
Cool. So tell us about your knighting ceremony. Is there a standard one that is used in Drachenwald, or did you have a non-standard one?
That was quite funny, right? So the king at that time was, and it was actually quite funny. The crown tournament before, I was in the finals, right? So the king, to step up, was the guy who won the final against me, and he wasn't a knight at that time. Was he? No, he wasn't. So, and the king at the time was an unbelt king too, and so some knight had to give me the accolade, right? And help the king to pass it down. And the person that was wielding the sword was Sir Cadogan of Drachenwald, which has been had been knighted by my dear friend Duke Jonathan at some point. And so I have a weird connection to the knighthood of Drachenwald. So, and that was the one thing that stuck. And I still have the many vigil letters. It is actually sometimes done that all the people will speak to you. They still will give you something written so that you can read it up later.
So that's not a concept I'm familiar with. You get vigil letters?
Yeah. Well, if somebody cannot attend and would like to say, but also there were people that say, it's a vigil. There are lots of people out there that want to talk to you. Congratulations. I think all is good. But here are some words for you. Read them when you got time. So yeah, still got them. Yes.
So the next crown that you fought as a knight and you won, right?
How was it? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was there a difference for you fighting in that crown as a knight as compared to unbelted that you think, maybe mentally gave you some sort of edge?
Not really. Not really. Although no, I didn't win the next crown. I won the crown after the next.
Okay.
The thing is, it wasn't I had been in semifinals and finals a couple of times by that point, and every time, and that is why I recommend everybody who wants to be a knight or wants to win crown at some point, do as many crown tournaments as you can, because that is where nobody pulls blows, right? That is where nobody gives you any more than they absolutely have to. So, and they will fight on their best, and you will learn something in every single crown. And looking back, I did. And the next crown after I got knighted, Ulfer won. Duke Ulfer of Antir, yes. I think he's. He won that one, and it was. I mean, I didn't look shabby or something. He had to work for it, and I mean, his last blow in the third bout was just absolutely beautiful, right? That was, and something I go back and look at like, oh yeah, that's cool. And then I was thinking like, okay, I had a plan to get to the final, right? And it was like, for me, was getting to the final, right? And take it from there. And what I understood at that point is having a plan to the final is not enough, because you have to have a plan for after the final. You have to go there and say, not if I'm in the final, it's when I'm in the final. That's what I'm gonna do. That's at least that's how it works for me, and it is still a thing, right? That while I'm a lot more relaxed, but having this, okay, I'm here. This is the final, and I just simply gotta win it, right? There's no doubt I will not ever, right? However, the funny thing is, not a single crown final I went into, or not a single fight in a crown I ever thought I could lose. Contrary to the evidence, but I still went and still go into every fight in a tournament like, nope, I'm going to beat you. I don't care who you are or what you are, and nope, I can do it. I can't do it always, but that's my attitude. Yeah, and then the one after that, I won fair and square against Sir Ivan, which fought a really, really good final too. It was real fun.
So do you find, like, you're talking about that mental game of it, on the day of a tournament like that, especially for Crown, do you find yourself doing special things for it to get ready? Do you find yourself doing visualization more that word? It sounds like you talk to yourself a lot. Do you, in a good way, but do you do a lot more of that? Is it more
no? I am not a big fan of ceremonies or that kind of stuff. I know there's lots of athletes that have their lucky jig or have their routine, and I started thinking about that relatively early, because people say, yeah, you know, if you would fight in a tournament like you fight in the pickups after, you would have won one already, right? And maybe you should do this or that. And I just said, no, this is not for me. And the reason is, if I'm relying on this particular routine and something goes wrong with that routine, right? I want to be able to get into my armor and be a blank slate. And at some point, I read, we all did, we read Musashi and and all that thing. And the one thing in particular that struck me as valuable is that concept of mind, no mind. Yeah? So you are basically in your own kind of bubble, and so you are not spending that much attention. You're not getting distracted by your environments while you are absolutely focused of seeing everything. And that is pretty much the state of mind I try to get into. And I call it stepping into myself.
I like that.
I'm just pulling myself together to my core, and I'm everything I am is inside me and waits there for things to happen and to react, right? And that's the moment where I, meanwhile, can be really, really relaxed on the field, right? I can watch my opponent doing things and react to them or do my own stuff because I think I don't need to do anything about it. And this is the point I reached after many years. So I try to teach that you whatever it is you are doing, don't let it become a routine. Don't let it become something you need to get into that state. Because if you learn to be self-reliant, and just look into yourself and find everything you need is there, then you're so much freer, right? Because you can just like, oh gosh, I'm late for the tournament. Can I still jump in, right? And you don't need anything, but you're still there, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of truth to that. Like the people that use like, oh, I have to do this beforehand, I have to make my sword, or I have to do something ahead of time to prep their brain. Yeah, that thing can't happen. It really messes with people. So having the process that you use to get ready for a fight be all internal is a really smart way of, and having it relatively fast, right? Like so it can happen even between rounds in case something goes weird between rounds. Yeah. Get that focus. It's a good idea.
I mean, another question I get asked a lot is, oh, do you study your opponents before Crown Tournament? And I deliberately do not. Yeah. I think, and if I study people, then I study them to understand what it is they are doing and how they do it, right? So that I have an understanding of other people's fighting, not to know how they fight, but just to have something in my library, I know how it works, right? And quite often I say, well, it wouldn't work for me because I'm not the right size, or it is my footwork is different on a certain level and all that. But it is always good to look at other people, what they are doing, and especially how they are doing it. But if I'm going into a tournament, I bring my A game. I bring all the things I know and all the things I train and all the things I do. And if that is not enough, no matter how much I study my opponent, I won't help. And yes, of course, if my opponent has a certain stance, then I adapt. Yeah? But I can do that on the fly without having to study them beforehand. And it also gives me that false security, right? Ideally, I fight every single fight like I have never fought that fighter before, even if I have fought them for 100 times. Blank slate, look at your opponent, what he is doing, and live in the moment. Yeah, that's how I fight.
Cool. So the formats of Drachenwald Crown, what is it usually a round robin and then the top two do a final?
It depends a little bit. We usually have the top four in semifinal and then final. Some rare occasions where we had over 20 people or so, which does not happen frequently. Then we split up the lists in two lists, and then so the last tournament I won was two lists of 12, I think, and then the two top from each list went to the semis. Something was it? I think. Yeah, I think the top two of each list went to the semis. So, and yeah, go ahead.
Oh, is it best 2 out of 3 semis and finals?
Usually it is, but it's happens that it's best out of 5. My third crown was the third one I won was best of 5. But it was also the best tournament in terms of stats I ever fought. I think there were 2 fights where I actually had to fight, 2 rounds where I had to fight 3 bouts. Everything else I just did best of 2. And then in the best of 5, I won the first 3. So it was that was good stats, but I was in shape, right? I was like 15 kilos less than I'm now, which makes a lot of difference.
Well, especially when you wear 70 pounds armor.
And the oh yes, absolutely. And the round robin. So in general, if you're used to large tournaments like 70, 80 people or so, you usually fight in a average Drachenwald tournament. You fight actually slightly more than in average you fight in a double elimination tournament, because you usually have 10, 12 rounds or so to the semifinals, right? And many large tournaments have like 7 or 8 rounds to the finals, right? So, yeah.
Right. So, tell us about reining in Drachenwald. Lots of flying, right? And
it's an expensive hobby if you rein, and I think we have been setting a bad example because we went to so many events, and so my wife and myself, we ran the last 3 together, and Eleanor, with whom I ran the first time, we always did that split up thing, right? So we go to certain events, we go together, but some events she goes and some other events I go. Also means one can keep the kids at home and the other one can fly, because flying with kids and all that. And it can be a lot. And I think raining back to back was not a good idea. And I mean, look, I there was the cream, the elite of Drachenwald fighters, and then if they are not good enough to keep me from winning, then I mean, what can I do, right? I love fighting crown tournaments, right? Yeah. But generally, reining is. I mean, there is rains and there's rains, right? Sometimes it just blows up into your face and somebody with the best intention just makes your life a living hell for a few weeks. But generally, since from my point of view, king is more or less a figurehead, right? Because as it is in most or pretty much in all well-organized societies, the matters of state are done by the officers of state, right? So, and in Drachenwald, you can rely on the seneschal and on the other officers that they are actually running the show for you. And I always try to have a collegial relation with the officers of state, because honestly, I'm not interested in running the kingdom. Yeah, it's you're there for like 6 months and you have so many other things to do. You can't really get your head around all the things that are doing there, and I would do the kingdom a disservice if I would interfere with the orderly running of the kingdom. I know it's totally alien to many, but that's what I think, and that's what happens here in Drachenwald usually. And one thing I've seen is that as soon as the king starts to meddle, things go sideways, because you never can know all the bits and details. So for some, except for some very, very exceptional circumstances where we thought we had to exercise the power of the crown, we do awards, and we try to push things in the direction, like talking to the orders about glass ceilings, talking to the MODs and the knights. What can we do to have more female participation, right, in martial arts? And it is not that we don't have enough female interest. For instance, if you look at fencing, we have a fencing academy, and at the lowest level, there is the free scholars. There is more females than males. Right. The next one, there is slightly more males than females, and in the top one, it's completely skewed. It's completely skewed. So at some point, 12% of the top level were female. Everything else was male, right? So, and that kind of stuff. I think that is what a king should do, right? Instead of meddling with politics.
So what has been the most enjoyable part of being king during all this? Like is it
the most enjoyable part is giving out AOAs. Giving somebody that first recognition, seeing them up in court is just so much fun. It's such a joy you can bring to people's life, and that is always and in general, giving awards is that thing, telling people you done good, you are one of us, and we like you, and here is your cookie, right? It's just I think that's the most enjoyable part of it.
What's your favorite tradition in your kingdom?
My favorite tradition. Do we have traditions?
If you don't, you don't.
Okay, so what I like about being king in Drachenwald is that, 21:30. Okay, yeah, we still have some time. So this time of year, I would normally be in Raglan Castle at Raglan Fair. So this is Raglan Week. It's not happening this year, so everything is virtual. But last year, was it last year? Yeah, last year I was king, and I spent most of the event in my medieval undies in my kitchen, cooking for numerous visitors. And nobody thought anything about it. I mean, they knew they couldn't keep me from it anyway. But as Drachenwald royalty, you are still part of the masses if you want to. Yeah? People just know that you yesterday was one of them, and tomorrow you will be one of them too. So probably today you're one of them. So and I think you can. I mean, just imagine a king decides, you know what? I have this new medieval kitchen, and I really want to try it out. And oh, can you run this? Yeah, I do court, maybe one or so. Okay, two. I can do two. Yeah, you set it up for me. Okay, good. Yeah, I need to cook, right? I have visitors later. Try to do this at, like, I don't know, a stray hour or something, right? So and I think this relatively informal attitude, well, people still understand that if you're a king, right? And as soon as you pull out that funky hat, then and you get that respect at all times, but they understand that you're still a human being and still want to have fun and all that. And I think that is one of the most valuable things in Drachenwald.
That's cool. So let's look at your killing tool then. Your sword. There it is. All right.
Can you see that? It's getting dark here. I mean,
yeah. So you use a cross guard.
Yeah, and I have been using a cross guard since pretty much at about the same time I started to put together my mail kit. I got 5 years in or so. I have a pair of finger gauntlets, and I've had them for 15 years. Wow, yeah. And they allowed me to fight with this, and I find that there's a number of things. First, aesthetically, it is much more pleasing than a basket hill. Yeah? It is also in its dynamics much closer to a real sword. Yeah, and everybody who does steel too will tell you that a steel sword is markedly different from a basket hilt round sword. It is still different from a crosshilt sword, but it's much closer. And I just like the look and feel of it, and it also gets me to a closer to period fighting style, because I just can't do Iron Chicken, right? So I don't want to be hit in the hand, right? Yeah. And when I started doing this, I didn't think I was blocking that much with my basket. But well, did I? Yeah. So and lots of people say, yeah, but I just try to block here. Where they block is exactly there, right? So so that means that I keep my hand further back or behind the corner of my shield or so. Or if I keep it out here, I'm pretty sure that my opponent can't reach it. So, and it also lets me do things you can't do with a basket-hilt sword, right? So, for instance, I can just simply let the pommel slide under my wrist. I can turn the sword in my hand while I'm doing that. So I can throw shots that you can't throw with a basket-hilt sword because they would land flat. I'm just so used to it, and I think it enriches the fighting. It has the disadvantages that you need to be much more careful with how you block and where you block. But otherwise, this is it's just. Also, if I see myself, on a picture or in a video or something, it's like, yeah, that looks kind of okay. And actually, this is I have a number of fittings for those because you want to have always a couple around, right? Because they are not exactly field replaceable. This one here is an old Mandrake guard. I bought it the first year I was at Strelva, 15 years ago, I think, and 14 years ago, something like that. So yeah, I've got more of them, and I usually have 2 swords ready, and the third guard somewhere around, just in case something breaks. But I haven't broken one in a long time. So usually if you break one, they break in the first couple of years, and there's usually a fabrication fault. So,
do you have a thrusting tip on your sword?
Yeah, always. I mean, there are times where I take it off because I want to remind myself not to be overly reliant on that. But usually I have a thrusting tip, and a quick thrust to the face is one of my signature shots, right? So.
And how long is your sword?
My sword is from pommel to tip 89 centimeters, which is just under 3 feet.
Cool.
So it is relatively long for a SEA sword. It is also relatively long for a medieval sword, but it is still within dimensions that you would find in the Middle Ages.
Cool. All right. Well, let's wrap up with the last 10 questions. So these are sort of rapid fire. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
At the moment, Uther.
Okay.
There's a story to it, but I not now.
Okay. Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
Not me.
Not you. Okay. All right then. If you could talk stick or fighting with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
I think Radnor.
Cool. What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
Oh, Knight's Tale.
Knight's Tale. Cool. If you could add a rule or subtract a rule to the rules of the list, what would it be?
Don't be a dick. That's what I look at.
What is your favorite tournament format?
Canterbury tournament, which is all participants line up The first person, in usually in reverse order of the field of precedence, the first person takes the field and fights all in the list in short succession, single bout. Sometimes even just first blood, but usually it's a single bout, and then joins at the end. So you fight everybody twice, but in short succession.
Oh, I like that. That's good. What's your favorite event?
My favorite event is, I think, Raglan Fair, in a castle, on a hill.
Cool. If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
I would exactly have the same helmet I have now. Actually, I would like to have the helmet I'm constructing at the moment, which has slightly smaller eye slits and is a little bit better constructed. So there is no extraneous welds or something. Everything is riveted, and yeah.
Cool. It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
I probably went to bed early. I'm an old Duke, you know.
You're not the only person to say that. Who's your favorite fight ever?
My favorite fight ever. I think I have to say Duke Hansa. Huh?
He's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fight. Okay, and then the bonus question, the last question is, who is the cleanest fighter in your kingdom?
The cleanest fighter in our kingdom is certainly Duke William, of the active fighters.
Okay, cool. Well, I really appreciate you doing this with us and taking the time and dealing with the time difference. It's been very interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I hope it helps. Thank you for having me. I actually enjoyed it very much, and I was hoping that it talking of old exploits would give me some motivation, and I think it did.
Oh, good.
So,
well,
I'm much more looking forward to put my armor back together now.
Well, cool. Well, thanks again, and thanks everybody for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.